Hello, ALAYAH, age 7, all the way from Rosemont. You're wondering, I suppose it's quite a good question, why elephants have got small eyes and such big ears. Well, it is actually a very good question, and it's not that difficult to answer. Elephants have got small eyes. They see probably about as well as we do, maybe like a sort of slightly short-sighted person, and they hear very well. So they hear better than we do. But those ears are not only used for hearing, they're also used for cooling down. So you can see that elephant is flapping her ears like that. And what that's doing is cooling the blood flowing through the ears, and that blood then travels into the elephant's brain and helps keep the elephant's brain cool. So that's why African elephants especially have got big ears. Asiatic elephants, which tend to spend a lot more time in forested areas or in big jungles where there's a lot more shade, have smaller ears, because they don't need to work quite so hard to stay cool. And although it's hot here, elephants can live in much hotter climates than we experience in the low veld of South Africa. So actually a really, really good question, that. Well done. They're all gathering together there in the shade, just doing a little bit of eating, but mainly it's sort of like an afternoon rest, like in Europe when they have siesta, which is the summertime post-lunch sleep or snooze. That's what they're doing here. I'm sure you've all had a post-lunch snooze after a big meal. I'm just going to get my binoculars out here and see if there aren't some very small ones, maybe even lying down. So often you'll have them lying down in the shade if they're very little. And that's always quite fun to see. But I don't see any lying down at the moment. They're all standing up. Oh, no, yeah, I think they're all standing up. Hello, Felix. You're aged 12. The tusks start showing normally around about 18 months or so, but I've noticed that it's very variable. Sometimes you'll have them coming out as early as a year. That's very unusual, but normally around 18 months, and probably sometimes as late as 2 years, and sometimes not at all. Remember, Felix, not all elephants get tusks. Most of them do, but some elephants are born without tusks. It's a little bit like being born without 2 front teeth, or never growing 2 front teeth, which I'm sure you can imagine would look a little bit strange. I don't think elephants with tusks tease elephants without tusks, although I don't know. Maybe they do. Hello, Michael. Interesting question. Do we have mountains around this area? Yes, we do. Not right where we are, but about probably, call it 100 kilometers or maybe even 100 miles, so 160 kilometers off to the west, we'll have the Drakensberg Mountains. And they stretch 1,000 kilometers or about 600 miles down the escarpment of South Africa. But the area that we're in right now is very, very ancient. And what that means is there hasn't been a lot of volcanic activity or tectonic activity in this area for many hundreds of thousands of years. And so any kind of hills and rocky areas and mountains have long since weathered to form this sand that we find ourselves on. So there are actually not that many rocks around this area, and the soil is very poor for things like agriculture, and all of that contributes to there not being any big mountains or hills in this particular part of the world. It also used to be part of a great inland sea, and so there are no mountains exactly where we are, but there's some spectacularly huge mountains off towards the west, and they stretch 600 kilometers or 600 miles down the escarpment of South Africa. And in fact, these elephants, the African elephants, before human beings settled in such big numbers in this part of the world, they used to go up into the mountains for the summertime and then come down here in the winter. And sorry, the other way around. They used to go up into the mountains for winter and then come down here in summer. And that meant that they always had good green food to eat and lots of water to drink. Elephants have to have lots of water, otherwise they really struggle. Now that little one over there that is waving his or her trunk at us is actually trying to smell us, which I think is quite interesting. And they use their trunks like that to interpret what's going on. So does she think we're a threat? We'll probably smell quite interesting to her, but she wants to understand what the strange new smell is. Now, Ali, age 6, I'm afraid I missed your question, so I'm going to ask for it again. And then I shall do my level best to answer it to the best of my ability. Oh, Ali, you wonder how long elephants live? Well, almost the same as humans, really. They probably have a potential lifespan, depending on what they can eat, of around 75 years. But you'll find that they will unusually live beyond 65. So 65 is probably around a good age for an elephant to get to. And they die normally of natural causes or causes other than a predator. So they get very old and their teeth wear out, Ali, and eventually they just simply can't eat enough to survive, and slowly they lose condition and eventually they die. It's not a very cheerful topic, but I suppose it's important to understand how these animals live.